just a few days away from a historic moment in Six Nations rugby, with the all-important Six Nations Grand Slam decider between the Red Roses and France having already sold a record-breaking 50,000 tickets. Today we preview that fixture as well as the semi-finals of the Champions Cup, and joining me and the full house of columnists to do so is England prop Maud Muir. We kind of all expected it. It's already sold over 50,000 tickets, which marks a world record attendance for a women's rugby fixture. We've got a full house of columnists, and joining us ahead of it is one of England's youngest players in Maud Muir. How are you, Maud?
I'm good, thank you. Had a day off yesterday, but travelled back from Ireland, so wasn't a full day off, but yeah, feeling good, ready to reset for the week ahead.
Awesome. And where are you now, actually? Are you in London?
We're in Bracknell. We're kind of like based between Bisham, Penny Hill Park, and a hotel in Bracknell. But we head to the Lensbury, I think it's in 2 days.
How excited for Twickenham are you?
Yeah, very excited. We haven't thought about it too much until now. But yeah, it's just going to be a monumental, is that a word? Not sure. Monumental game. And it's just a crazy part of history for women's rugby. So it's going to be really exciting.
Before we get into the game, I'm astonished to learn that you're not in a suite of your own at the Penny Hill Park with your £45 high teas. What's going on there?
Yeah, I'm not sure on the whole details. I just know that we don't stay at the hotel in Penny Hill, and we actually haven't ever. We won a competition once to get to use the pools at the hotel, but that's as much as we've used of the hotel.
Do you not use the training facility there at all?
Yeah, so we use the gym and the pitch and the barn, but we kind of don't go into the actual complex of the hotel and stuff.
Okay.
Does that mean you have to walk back to Bracknell?
We don't walk, we do drive.
I'm flying the flag for equality here. I think you should be in the Penny Hill Park.
Yeah, I agree.
We'll keep pushing, but it doesn't sound like we will anytime soon. But who knows? Maybe if we sell out Twickenham for this weekend.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that. Let's look backwards before we look forwards. So overall reflections from Ireland, a lot of people were expecting a Six Nations, a record score, which I think would have beaten 89-0. Obviously fell some way short of that. Did it feel like you guys fell short in terms of the performance as well?
Yeah, we all came out feeling really frustrated, to be honest. Things didn't stick. We didn't perform anywhere near as well as we could have. We were all disappointed, but we still, with that disappointment, we still managed to put 50 points or so on a team. So it does show that although we've got so much work to do this week, we can still execute in those we bookended the game really with points. But yeah, there's a lot to work on this week, and I'm sure our training sessions will be a bit more intense, just with the quality and finishing those passes. And it's the final touches, I think, that didn't go to hand, which really let us down. But they're simple fixes. It's not really a system error. It was very individual errors throughout the game. So I think they're very easy fixes for the week.
You mentioned that you bookended the game. I think that's a very good way of putting it. And to be honest, from watching the Red Roses for a few years now, I think not necessarily bookending the game, but there's that lull in the middle of the game is something that's a bit of a repeat offence. Is that some discussion, and is that one of the work-ons you mentioned? How would you go about correcting that?
We haven't talked about it outright, but I think it does happen because we start so well. Teams do come back, and I think we do drop off, but it also comes because teams step up when they are down by that much, if that makes sense. And then obviously we get points at the end as well because our finishers come on, and our finishers are great and they will always step up, and that's when we get points on again. So I think it's sort of to do with that. I don't know if there's any other analytical stuff. I don't feel as a team we not purposely, but we don't have a different mindset as soon as we've gotten into that half of the first half sort of thing.
It's pretty difficult, Maud, isn't it? I don't know how you can answer this really, because it's an awkward issue, but the gulf that's between England and Ireland, I mean, is so much greater than the difference between England and France. Do you prepare in any way differently for a weekend when you know that the game is going to be extremely competitive and that there's going to be some fear factor involved and there's going to be some nerves involved, which may not be there for some other fixtures, not all, but for some other fixtures? It's a pretty tough thing to go out there in an international game when you know in your heart of hearts that if all goes well, you're going to win comfortably. It's a very big difference to playing somebody like France or like New Zealand or even Canada in the semi-final at the World Cup when the fear factor kicks in. So do you prepare differently? Is the mindset completely different through the week?
I think we try to get the same mindset, but obviously there's underlying like nerves for those sorts of games. Like no one wants to lose. And although, you know, we do want to win, we also want to be challenged. So these games do help us be better because, well, we just don't get them back often. But to do with training, our training week's very similar. We have a little bits of change that are kind of off-field stuff, like getting a coach to training just because it's a bit further. That does change a bit, but pretty much the whole week's looking very similar.
Would it be in a way that the Irish were actually very persistent and very dogged defensively, and actually in a way it's a bit of a wake up for England in some ways, that game, because there was a period where you already said where England went quiet in the second half in particular. Is that not a bad thing in some ways, because you're trying to play a more open game? As you say, quite a lot of the passes didn't stick. There was also a fair amount of indiscipline as well. You got on the wrong side of the referee at certain times. So there's a lot to work off there, isn't there? And maybe just having a little bit, okay, it's still a 48-0 victory, but there were long periods really where you weren't able to impose yourselves on the Irish in the way in which you wanted to.
I think it is, dusted off the cobweb sort of thing. So we know that, we can't do that against the French because they will punish us and they will put points up against us. So I think it has given us a bit of a kick, but also we had that mindset anyway that we were going to go up a more challenging France this week, but we did know that Ireland were going to bring it to us. Like we had no previous conceptions, no matter how, well they or not so well they did in the previous games. We didn't think, oh, this is going to be an easy game at all. But I really think they did step up. So, and did bring it to us, but that did put us under a bit more pressure. However, it was kind of, it was our own fault, mistakes that let us down rather than, them putting loads of pressure on us. Why we made so many mistakes, I don't actually know the answer to that, because it was pretty individual errors.
Yes, it seemed to be like just pushing the pass one time too many very often, rather than recycling. You'd had good flowing movements, and then there was just that tendency to try and find the miracle pass right at the end.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it just shows that we can also stick it up the jumper occasionally and just play through them as opposed to all the time expansive rugby.
Yeah.
Is there not an element also that, this France-England match has been on the horizon for a very long time, and both sides you'd be not human if you weren't focusing on it a bit. Because I thought France were off the boil a bit as well at the weekend. One or two very good tries, but 39-14 against Wales, it wasn't their best performance, I didn't think. So I think, there's that subconscious thing. The big one is now 6 days away. That's when we got to reduce everything.
Maybe, yeah, subconsciously, but to be honest, we haven't really talked about it at all, the French game, until today, really. So subconsciously, maybe, but I also don't know the answer to that one. But yeah, the French game, they had a really good start again, and then they kind of bookended it as well. So I don't know.
Yeah, they did rather, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the pressure that other teams put on you once they are down by that many points. I'm not too sure. Or the drop off from us in France. But to be honest, I think that we won't do that next week, and that won't happen, and we'll, be consistent throughout the whole performance.
Well, watching that French performance against Wales, and it was a bit of a curate's egg job for sure, but from a sort of slightly untutored eye in terms of what they generally do in the women's game there, I just thought some of their angles of running and their support play and their ability to get numbers into narrow channels and make the most of those opportunities. It's almost like watching like French rugby as a whole. There are things that in common in the styles that they play. Is it your impression that if they get a platform up front, they're really dangerous for you?
Yeah, they are definitely dangerous open play, and I think a key thing for us this week is to, destroy their set piece. That is our mindset. But we have a stronger defence in the back system. So I don't think they'll be able to make those cutting lines as easily as their previous games. But I definitely think a key thing for us this week is that we can get, destroy their set piece so that they don't have that front foot ball to play off.
Am I right in thinking that their number 10 is it Tremoulier, who plays like Stephen Larkham? She's sort of tall and not terribly quick, and does a load of whole magical things, especially in the offload department. I mean, her distribution out of contact is really very good. I think I'm right in saying this is her last game.
I think she is retiring. That was her last home game.
Yeah, so there'll be some sort of emotional content around her performance. I would think that will give them an extra edge, conceivably.
An edge, or could work in our favour as well. But again, we don't really focus on that specific part of it, because we also don't know if she's going to be selected at 10. Who knows? You don't really focus on that sort of specificness.
Should you happen to come across her in open field, Maud, would you treat her to the full range of your abilities in contact?
I'll try and push her back a bit.
Maud, how's Marley Packer doing?
Yeah, Marley's doing good. We have this thing called Rehab Club, which she's being integrated in that. Yeah, it's been a very fluid in and out club throughout the Six Nations, but we're not too sure if she's going to be fit or not, but I think they're going to assess throughout the week. So she's definitely not ruled out for the weekend.
Okay, but no official update, obviously.
No official update.
Brendan, I wanted to ask you about Ireland after the performance of the weekend, and it's funny that some were arguing who would be the happier of the two sides after a 48-0 win, but some were saying that Ireland would be happier than the Red Roses, which there's an irony in. It shows how big the gap is, and there are massive problems in Irish women's rugby. Only 7 players took up pro contracts. The whole I give a fuck protest angle, which was trying to counteract. Obviously, there was a name in Irish rugby who was heard saying, "I don't give a fuck about women's rugby." Some want to remain in the Premier 15. Salary issues.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess there, but I think I'm right in saying that one group of ladies turned up in t-shirts saying "I do give a fuck,"
They did,
which is good to see. Male supporters, but so there's a bit of spirit there. Listen, you know, I know you go back. I don't know what's happened in Ireland. They were outstanding at the 2014 World Cup. They beat New Zealand. You know, they were the team that opened up women's rugby, because until then, New Zealand had a stranglehold for 16 years, and without Ireland beating New Zealand, you know, they might well have won that World Cup. And it just seems they seemed underappreciated, undervalued. There was a bit of spirit there. You know, I certainly thought it was going to be a record sort of cricket score. So 48-0 was actually not a bad result. And as Nick was saying, there was a bit of ticker there. They really dug in and, okay, damage limitation, but that's what it had to be, you know, and they did limit the damage. But it's completely out of step with the rest of Irish rugby, isn't it? Women's rugby. They're getting so much else right everywhere. Provinces, Europe, you know, European competitions, URC, preparation of the national team, everything is absolutely P1 except the women's program. And I think they need a big name to put their reputation and name alongside women's rugby, go in there and just be the person around the totem pole figure around which Irish women's rugby sort of gather.
Do you think, given that Irish rugby in general elsewhere is hitting all the right spots, it's only a matter of time?
Well, you'd like to think that, but why isn't it there already? You know, because Irish rugby's been hitting the spots for a long time now, you know, 5 or 6 years. And you'd think the women's rugby would have come along in, you know, in the draft of that. So I'm perplexed as to what's happened there, especially as I remember, you know, that day they beat New Zealand. I thought, you know, they're really going places, this team.
Yeah.
Well, it's possible to argue, Brendan, isn't it? I mean, I'm not close enough to Irish rugby now to know this for sure, but the administrative governance wing of Irish rugby was extremely traditional for many, many years. Now, I don't know whether there's been a significant change, and as we've all been saying, every other bit of Irish rugby is interlocking beautifully, and everything's leading one thing to another, and it's all going swimmingly, apart from the women's game. Brendan, given your contact, personal and professional contacts in Ireland, do you think that there is still some, not resistance, but a level of don't careishness at governance level, which may be affecting the development of the women's game?
I think you'd have to conclude that there still is a bit.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I think they're just underappreciated, and there might be elements there that haven't appreciated that. Not just Irish women's rugby is moving on. It's now becoming a fantastic thing. You'd like to think they'd get there quickly now, but something's got to happen because they are languishing.
I definitely think it is that support that they are lacking. Like the girls that play at Gloucester for Ireland, they just don't have that support that like the RFU provide for us. They just don't have any of it, and it's really damaging to see because they're working so hard, they're training so hard, but they just don't get the support at all. Like the girls at Gloucester had to say no to a contract because they needed to move back to Ireland, but the league is nowhere near as good as the Prem. So it is just that compromisation sort of thing. Like they're not going to be able to magically appear to be an amazing league in Ireland. So why don't you let your players play in that English league whilst we develop that Irish league so that it's at the standard that will make the Irish national team better? It just seems to be a bit backwards, and it will take so much time, like a couple of years, for it to be, you know, the Ireland team to be at the same level as the other nations now, because we're all nations are moving at such a rapid notch of development. It's going to be really difficult, but they just need a bit of support from the IRFU, I think.
It's because the debate, right, is whether professionalism or not kicks in, but what people don't discuss a lot of the time is what professionalism will actually look like. And more, I know you can't comment on the finances side of things and the players at Gloucester and what they were offered, but you know, reading about it, obviously the Red Roses are the salary is in the 25,000 to 35,000 from what I've read, and the Irish players, it seems to be something like 15,000 on the lower end. And like, well, I'm sure, you know, that's not really enough if you're having to upend your life in England in the Premier 15s and then go to a league, like you say, that's less competitive, probably won't help you as a rugby player quite as much, and then also probably take a pay cut from whatever you're already doing.
Yeah, it's just not livable. But I think it isn't just the money, it's everything else that comes with it, you know, the support through training and stuff like that, having not just a week before the tournament starts having training, but you know, checking in a few weeks before, that sort of thing, I think really adds up. And it's not just contact hours as well, it's the, you know, physio throughout the year. It's not just the training hours. I think that's where they need to look at as a whole year, as opposed to just Six Nations and WXV or whatever.
I think Maud makes a really good point there, actually. I mean, the Irish rugby in recent years has done brilliantly in keeping its very biggest names in Ireland. You know, there's a reason Brian O'Driscoll didn't go and play in France or wherever, and that was because the incentives for him to stay in Ireland were huge. We know Sexton went very briefly to France and regretted it, but most of those really big name Irish men's players have stayed in Ireland, and the incentives are massive, and they're financial and they're tax incentives, etc., etc., etc. But it's not only the financial incentives, is it? They can also offer them a fantastic opportunity on the field to win big prizes. You know, you can keep Brian O'Driscoll at Leinster because there's a Heineken Cup possibility on the end of it. And at the moment, in Irish women's rugby, they can't do that. They can actually pay them. They can actually offer to pay them more. But if there's not much of a league over there and there's not much competition week on week, it's unsatisfying, I would think, for an Irish player. So Maud makes a perfectly good point. It would be entirely sensible for the Irish just to say, carry on playing for Saracens or Gloucester or wherever it is. Just stay over there, develop your game, and we'll build from the bottom up. And when we're good enough to bring you all back on a decent wage with a decent fixture schedule, then that's what we'll do. That should be the way forward, surely.
Yeah, I agree. Let's look ahead to England, France a little bit. So again, over 50,000 tickets sold. Now, we mentioned that England were trying to, you know, force that extra miracle pass, that sort of thing a little bit. And Maggie Alfonsi, who was a guest on the pod a few weeks ago, actually, she's come out and said that England have actually moved away from their maul in the first 5 rounds of the Six Nations, and that they should move back towards it as one of their primary strengths against a French outfit that will give them their first real test. Maud, what do you make of that?
Well, I'm a forward, aren't I?
She's bound to disagree.
Yeah, I think our key thing is being able to attack in all areas of the field and in all different ways. So we have options, you know, but our main thing is maul first, then, you know, see what options there are in the rest of the field if the maul stalls, sort of things. So I don't think we've come away from the maul completely, and it's still a key part of our training. But yeah.
Can I just ask you, how many variations have you actually got at the maul? How many different drives? How many, how many different moves off it?
Like as in within a line out or off the line out?
Well, maybe off the line out would probably be, allow for greater clarity.
Well, I obviously don't know exact numbers, but we have set plays and then we have options off those set plays. So yeah. I don't know, there'd probably be 15 or 20 different options that you can go to. But my head's probably in the back of them all, so I don't even see it.
Do you sometimes find with the amount of line out calls that you've got and then the moves off them and so on and so forth, sometimes feel that there's a bit of information overload sometimes, or?
I definitely think at the beginning of coming into England, I was like very overwhelmed, but there's little pieces added in, and to be honest, against the best, you need that. You need the different variation in the line out. You can't just, go to the middle or go to your best line out jumper every time, because they'll defend it, so having that variation is so important. And with the backs having their different moves, all options being on is always good. Like if you only have one option, if the defensive picture doesn't open up, then you can't use that. So yeah, I think it's having all the options available. And yeah, it is a lot of information, but I think we go through it enough that everyone is clear on their roles. So yeah.
And is the French maul defense pretty good?
It is good. I think watching their games, it's definitely an area we can attack. I think we can. We're definitely going to try and maul over a few, but we'll see what opens up on Saturday.
Yeah.
We were mentioning, Maud, a couple of weeks ago that in the Premiership, in the men's Premiership, hookers are second only to wings in terms of try scoring. They're alone to hookers in the top 20 Premiership try scorers, and it's not because they've all turned into Bone Barrett. It's because they're spending quite a long time hanging off the back of the stuff that you do at close quarters. Would it amaze you if in the next 5 years the people who make the laws in the game just try to reduce the influence or the impact or the potency of the line out maul, of the 5 meter maul?
I don't know how they would. Like, would they just say you're not allowed to maul unless it's 5 meters out? I don't know what they'd do. I don't think they really can. It's a big part of the game. And yeah, whilst it is probably not as attractive to look at, it's a key part of rugby, and it's a key part of opening up the rest of the field. So I think it does, it adds to rugby.
They could. There are a few things they could do. Some things have been suggested. There's a professional referee I know who says, well, you could stop it just by lifting in the line out, and then you can't set yourself in the same way that you can with lifting. Or you could say, if you kick for touch off a penalty in the opposition half, the opposition get the throw. You can't. There are things you can do to stop what some people think is the inevitability. It's not quite inevitable because some sides defend better than others, but there's a hell of a lot of tries being scored. Barely a game goes by, Maud, without a couple of close quarter tries.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be the same, and I think, like, if it gets you points, it gets you points, sort of thing. Like, it's kind of a thing to have in your locker.
Yeah.
If everything else isn't going well, you can go 5 meters out and get some points on the board. That's my point of view for it.
Yeah. You could argue, couldn't you, in the World Cup final, that wasn't something in the locker for if things were going wrong. That was England's go-to tactic from the kickoff.
Yeah, one of the areas that is an issue is that it's obviously one area of the game where it's legalized obstruction effectively. So you've usually got a phalanx of people in front of the ball carrier, and that didn't used to be the case. That ball had to be held so that it was in contact with the opposition. So you could have a latcher, but those who'd secured it still needed to be on the ball, and that made it more of a grapple, and it made it possible for, and there were very, very good mauling teams who used to get in and strip the ball. And that seems to have gone out the window now. And it's actually not a good law variation. I'm sure it's not easy to score from a driving ball at any stage, but it's certainly easier than it used to be. I
think it just means that as a defensive team, you need a better line-out defensive maul system. Like, it's not about going through the maul now, it's trying to stop it at source and being that flat, however many people to stop it. not trying to get the ball back necessarily, but stopping them getting the nudge on.
Yeah, I mean, one of the sort of time-honored ways of doing it is sort of what they call chopping the log. You knock it sideways, so it's side on rather than as a spear point, and then you're not offside, so you can chop it that way. But
yeah, there's lots of different things you can do. You can stand off it, but I think
How did we get to a point in the game where you can't collapse them all off a line out? I mean, unless you sack it, I suppose. But you can't collapse them all off the line out. But after in a choke tackle, you can collapse them all as soon as the referee shouts "more." How does that work?
Yeah, it doesn't, does it?
Come on, Maud.
To it at all. No logic to it at all. But that's rugby law,
game full of contradictions.
Well, that's a pretty big one in my view.
It is a pretty big one. No question.
Maud, you're a cricketer, weren't you?
Sorry?
Yeah, I did used to play cricket. Played for my county, Oxfordshire, for a few years. Yeah.
Were you a blistering middle order batter, or did you fire a few quick ones down? What was your strength in the Great Summer Game?
Fielding. I was a great fielder. No, I was also like middle order batter. Like I'd either hit it and whack it and get a couple runs, or I'd get out first ball.
Oh.
A couple runs. I mean,
there was another pro, wasn't there? David Soul at Exeter University. Yeah, they reckon he was the best fielder in the cricket team. So you're in a long line of outstanding cover points.
You painted quite a good picture of why you turned to rugby, Maud. If you were just going to get a quick two or get a first baller, and you didn't do much bowling, but you were brilliant in the field. Were you cover point, mid wicket? Sort of Viv Richards.
I like being wherever they would hit it in the air, because I literally threw my body round like a rag doll. I'd love it.
That's quite impressive. But no cricket in summer season anymore.
Only if it's for fun, in a park or something like that.
Social cricket. I haven't played in a long time. I saw a Sunday game and I got very nostalgic. Now, I wanted to ask about, so Simon Middleton's come out and said a couple of interesting things this tournament, and one of them's about goal kicking. And I wanted to know your thoughts on the whole goal kicking. If you score a try out wide, you can bring it into 10 meters, and he made it the equivalent to the women's tee in golf. And whether you think that's a viable option for the women's game, because goal kicking stats are obviously quite low. I think Lagi Tuama got one of her first 5, for example, on Saturday. Whether it would increase that a little bit.
Yeah, obviously I'm not a goal kicker, so I don't really know the ins and the outs. I think that people can do it. I think World Rugby and Six Nations have posted loads of clips of kickers slotting them in from the touchline, so it can happen. And I think that I had an interview the other day with Rido, and she was saying that it isn't coached as much as like other areas of the game, so that's perhaps why it is a bit lower. But I definitely don't think that moving it in would help in terms of long term. I think to try and equal the game, we need to keep the laws as similar as possible to the men's game. I think it will grow the gap between men's and women's, and it will show spectators that they're not, we're behind the men, and that's not the case. We can, well, not me, but the other girls that kick for posts can get it. And I think it is an area where needs a bit more development in the coaching side of things. Obviously can't speak personally, but
I think that's interesting, because I guess what you've just said is that they can do it, and the way I hadn't really thought about it, and Chris, I'm going to ask you about your thoughts on it as well. But with the golf example, the tees are brought forward because female golf players, I don't know of any that could hit it 350 yards as some of the men do, and so there is that limitation. But obviously Emily Scarrett can quite easily slot from the touchline, so why wouldn't you keep it that way?
I can't imagine why. I mean, women's rugby has developed. I mean, we know that there are problems with relative strengths, and there's an elite band of highly professionalized teams that are 20, 30 points better than everyone else. So all that sort of stuff. But in general, women's rugby, as Brendan said earlier, has moved on at a fantastic pace over the last decade, 12 years. It's a pretty good product now. It's a really, really very good product now, as the Twickenham crowd, 50,000, might be up to 60,000 by the weekend, will tell you. So why the women's game would want to separate itself at all, or make any kind of special case for itself at all, when it's made such a strong case, playing exactly the same rules as the men's game? I think it would be a hugely retrograde step, honestly. And I was surprised that Simon said it. I mean, in pure strength terms, or kicking strength terms, at the moment, he might have a case, but I think it's a very thin case if you set it against the much broader context of the advances that the women's game has made, playing exactly the same rules as the blokes. And I think they should keep it exactly the same.
And it also penalises the brilliant individual players who can kick it from the touchline, who can kick it from 40 metres. And the women's game has always had a few of those. Even, I can go back to 87. I covered the first Wales women England game, and there was a couple of girls in that game who could really kick the ball. So I think Maud's onto something there. It's not coached enough. It's not concentrated on enough. And perhaps if there was a bit more focus on that, and if a team's got a demon goal kicker, good on them. That's their advantage.
Well, there's a simple answer. There's a simple answer from England's perspective, is to raise a couple of £1 million and bring Dave Allready.
I think, yeah, you say it right. Like, to try and keep the women's game as accessible and as easy to watch as possible will be the best thing for the game. And the supporters from the men's side will find it so easy to watch. I think that's what we need to do. Not that we're trying to always get just the men's spectators. We're getting every type of spectator there is, but I think to make it as easy as you can is the best thing for the women's game.
Yeah.
There would be that transition phase where a player would score the try in the corner, and then the kick would be taken 10 meters in, and spectators will go, well, why on earth is that happening? And that just disrupts the continuity of effortlessly watching sport, which we know that rugby, because of all its law changes and permutations, it struggles with anyway.
Yeah. And let's face it, women's sport has struggled so hard to gain some kind of parity. It's not so long ago where there was no women's pole vault in the Olympics, for example, no women's hammer, because they were, I don't know what reasons they came up with for obstructing that kind of stuff. But now every men's event in track and field in the Olympics, there's a women's event run along exactly the same lines on exactly the same basis. And that's a big advance. You've got women's boxing now, you've got women's cricket. All right, the boundary rope might be brought in a few yards, but that's done for T20 purposes anyway, no matter which sex is playing the game. So and you look at the Lionesses, they're playing a game of football in exactly the way as an England men's team play a game of football. It's instantly recognisable. There are no differences. There's no confusion. Maud's absolutely right. It would say something about women's sport that women's sport does not want said about it, frankly, to start jiggering around with the rules and making them different.
Yeah, look, I mean, the thing from my point of view is that it's a closed skill. So it is one that you can practice and practice and practice, and you can get better. And I think that I think that it would be pointless to have a sort of a lesser goal kicking skill, definitely. And I think that you can see there's been progression in terms of, if you actually look at on-field kicking as well, girls are kicking the ball a lot longer than they did sort of say 10 years ago or something of that sort. And there's no question that the goal kickers are actually kicking it further than they did as well. So that progression can continue.
I think that's very well put, and I agree with all of you, actually, which is actually quite rare.
Oh, we usually fight like cat and dog mood. So it's you've you are
Calm and influence.
you're one of the world's natural diplomats. Well done.
Thank you.
Maud, just before you go, let's do your round in Rugby 15 very quickly.
Okay.
I don't know if you were told about that by Emily. It's just 15 quick fire questions about you, basically. It's not general knowledge or anything like that. It's just get to know you a bit better. You looked very relieved. General knowledge.
Yeah, I'm awful at general knowledge quizzes.
I am too, as Chris constantly gives me shit for, actually.
Indeed, I don't know what's happened to the education system, but there we go.
No, I know it is poor. I apologise. Right, let's get going. Nickname.
Maudster.
Best rugby memory.
First cap against the All Blacks, Black Fans.
Most embarrassing rugby memory.
Ooh, probably I just trip over all the time over nothing. Like a blade of grass would trip me over.
Is that true in life as well as on a rugby field? You're just very clumsy.
Quite clumsy, yeah.
Pre-game tune.
Whatever's on the speaker.
Post-game meal.
Pizza, burger, whatever is on offer. Sorry, these aren't very good.
Best player you've played against.
Played against. Probably scrummaging wise, Vic Cornborough.
Yeah. Best player you've played with.
Vic Cornborough.
Favorite player right now.
Favorite player right now. Probably Sarah Byrne. Just the stuff she's doing around the park and scrummaging is great.
Rugby idol.
Vic Cornborough.
Never had someone be the answer for 3 questions.
She'll love it. She'll love it.
Favorite stadium.
Favorite stadium. Oh, I played an under-18 game at Principality, which was very cool. There was no crowd, but well, maybe 10 people, but it was still very cool.
Favorite gym exercise.
I quite like shoulder press.
What, barbell or dumbbell?
Yeah, barbell.
Occupation if rugby didn't exist.
Probably a coach or a teacher. Something to do with either children or sport.
Okay. Not
or both.
Not teaching general knowledge though.
No. Like 4-year-olds teaching.
Oh wow. Okay.
You know, young.
Superstitions.
None. Really.
Rugby law you would change.
Not the maul rule. Maybe that I quite liked this, you know, when you put the ball down, now it's a kick, a 22 dropout. No, it's a goal line dropout. I quite liked when it was a scrum, to be honest. So I'd probably change it back.
Held up.
Or when you like just put the ball on the ground over the try line. It's a goal.
You just want more scrums.
Yeah.
And lastly, best thing about working in rugby.
The people.
Yeah, awesome.
Especially Vic Cornborough.
Especially Vic Cornborough. I'll send the link to Vic Cornborough and she'll love it.
So many shout outs. That was a great round of Rugby 15 because you looked surprised by every word that came out your mouth.
Oh really?
Right, Maud, I'll let you go there. It's
amazing.
Been great meeting you, and yeah, massive good luck for this weekend. It's very, very exciting, and I know you haven't played at Twickenham since age grade or like school level rugby, have you?
Yeah. Well, I actually played. I forgot about. I did that in an interview, and I forgot I actually played at a big game one year, but not played for England.
England Twickenham debut, so it's something to cherish.
Yeah.
Hopefully
exactly.
Can get the Grand Slam.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Now that Maud's gone, it felt a bit harsh to ask her for a score prediction. I did ask, I think, Sadia Kabea for a score prediction for the World Cup final, and then they obviously ended up losing, so I didn't want to do that again and jinx the Red Roses. But can we get a score prediction from all 4 of us? Yeah. I'll start with Nick.
Say 25-18 England.
25-18. I think that's quite good, especially by your standards, Nick.
They're improving.
They are. You're on a roll of 1.
Yeah. I'll take it.
I think France have got another gear. If it's a dry day, I think they'll win about 30-25. If it's like it is today, I think the England forwards will get on top. So really, if you could ask me on Friday, guys, when we've got the weather forecast. But on a dry day, I think France are going to win it.
Does that mean you think France are going to win it?
On a dry day, yeah.
No, that doesn't answer the question.
Okay, France will win it.
Okay, France will win it by 5-ish.
30-25-ish, yeah.
Yeah. Chris?
I'm with Bren, actually. I think the French will ask questions that England simply haven't been asked so far. I mean, England are going at 10 tries a game.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's 39 tries in 4 matches. And they're scoring much more heavily than France. Even though, as we said earlier, they've had a couple of games where they've taken a bit of time off and they've been bookending games. So I think the French will be pretty emotionally charged for it. England will be emotionally charged also, but it's a less experienced side than we've seen in the recent past. And if Marley Packer doesn't play, who seems to me to be, I mean, real captaincy material, and she's a tough nut, I think. So if she doesn't play, I think that leaves a bit of a hole there, and I can see the French, if they get a platform, winning the game by not by much, by a score.
And I'll be going England by a score. So Nick, it's you and me.
Okay. You're in good company, Ollie.
And I think I've checked it's going to be dry on Saturday.
Hang on, Ollie's having a rethink.
Yeah, I've been here before. Okay, just before we wrap up, quick 10 minutes on the Heineken Cup. The headline from today, we're recording on Monday evening, is that Jacko Piper is making his Heineken Cup debut in La Rochelle versus Exeter. Nick, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, look, he's. I don't really feel that that the referee should be a real fixture in it. Okay, we've got the Freddie Stewart red card. I don't necessarily think that he'll be reaching for that in a similar incident with quite the same speed as he did the last time round. But no, look, I mean, he's a panel referee, so I would anticipate he'd do a good job. I think that Exeter are very lucky to be there. Their game against Montpellier, the red card that went to Zach Mercer has been wiped off the slate, and I think if he'd stayed on, that they would probably have lost at home to Montpellier. And the Stormers' performance in the semi-final was sort of unrecognisable, really, from the side that they were the week before. So Exeter, but credit to Exeter, they didn't turn up. Exeter did turn up, and they turned up in a way. I think Rob Baxter was right when he said that it was their best performance of the season. And if they go to Bordeaux and produce even if they can match that or produce a step up, they won't be easy meat at all for La Rochelle. But I think La Rochelle have got too much all round, too much clout, and a sort of one of those South Seas phenomenons, or two of them actually. Although Skelton is Australian by nationality, South Seas by heritage, and Bottia. Those two are just they're sort of match winning.
Just on the Jacko Piper thing, I don't think Piper's my favourite referee any more than a Carl Dixon or an Andrew Brace at the moment are my favourite referees. But I've got nothing against him doing the game, apart from the fact that there are options. for the Heineken Cup, or sorry, the European Champions Cup refereeing department to pick a referee who can speak both French and English. And it's not just Barnes and Luke Pearce, but like the Georgian guy who has been brilliant all season. Everyone's talked about him. You know, I don't know whether he's got a game elsewhere. But for a game of that magnitude, I just think it's beginning to look embarrassing when there's an Anglo-French contest or a Celtic-French contest or whatever it is. The French have spent years and years and years at a significant disadvantage in terms of language. As the game gets noisier, as the chat gets more, as the referees provide more and more in the way of running commentaries. Yes, they will have some some English speakers in their side. La Rochelle, I'm sure Will Skelton can speak some kind of language, can't he? But it is still, in the midst of battle, it is still a massive disadvantage when a referee's giving running commentaries and half of the opposition at least cannot understand it. So I just think the optics of it are important, and I think that they should be doing everything they can, the people who are allocating these fixtures, to make sure, insofar as they can, that there is a dual language referee on the field.
Right, I mean, that's an interesting one. You know, I mean, I suppose in principle that's right, but it's also not right if you're an outstanding referee and you don't happen to be a linguist, that you're not you know, penalised off the park when it comes to big games. So, you know, I mean, but I don't think it's difficult to learn 15 or 20 or say, I think 15
right,
or whatever. I don't think that's difficult. And
Wayne Barnes and Luke Pearce have gone out of their way to do it.
Yeah.
And they've been
I don't think either of those are linguists, but if you're earning £80,000-100,000 a year, you learn a bit,
really effective. It's beginning to really get on my nerves now when somebody will jabber for 79 minutes in the ear of somebody of Toulouse or La Rochelle or whoever, and then in the last minute, when they're 10 points down and they can't win the game, they'll suddenly say "allez" or "jouer" or something like that, and you think, you prat.
Yeah, it's interesting, because what do you do, for example? Let's say, you know, you transpose Georgia with France. You know, I mean, how many Georgian-speaking referees are you going to get? You know, outside Georgia.
Except they all talk French, don't they?
Well, that's true. There is a lot of French, I suppose, and it's true with the South American sides of Spanish and all that. I mean, I mean, you can't all be. Not every referee is going to have a full full armory of rugby playing languages. But the French do play in quite a lot of big games.
Yeah, they do.
And very often they're against. Well, they don't play themselves very often, so generally they're against English-speaking teams, and they have been at a disadvantage. They've complained about it in the past. They've had plenty to say on the subject in the past. And the only reason I raise it now is that in the last 2 or 3 years, people like Barnes and Pearce have made the effort to do this stuff. I mean, there used to be Alan Roland, of course, who was able to cope.
No, he was half French.
He's half French. Well, that's absolutely fine. Yes, there is a limit to how far you can go in this. I agree, Nick. But if you've got the opportunity, if you've got the bodies there to be able to do it, and they are good enough referees, then I don't see why you wouldn't be doing it. And it's at this point you tell me that Georgian's going to do Leinster and Toulouse.
No, he's not. That's Wayne Barnes.
Oh, right. Oh, well,
that's a very interesting one, because I highlighted it a couple of weeks ago.
Matter of interest, do you know certain the Georgian referee does speak French, does he?
Yes, he does.
Does he? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wayne Barnes is doing Leinster Toulouse. Luke Pearce is also involved, Brendan.
I think, is he on running the touch? I don't know. But the Wayne Barnes call's a big one, because, as we said a couple of weeks ago, Leinster's Achilles heel, if they've got one, is that one day a ref is going to ping them at the breakdown, and Wayne Barnes might be that man. You know, big semi-final. He won't want them taking the mick at the breakdown, and he might decide quite early on to get quite strict. And I agree, referees shouldn't make a difference, but we all know they do on occasions. And I think that's a small victory for Toulouse. That they won't be at all unhappy to have Wayne Barnes that match.
I do think actually that Carl Dixon should definitely be doing one of these big games because, of course, you construct self-importantly in any language.
Esperanto.
I think
he's a potential guest for the pod, Chris. So what on?
Excellent. Excellent. Well, will he be able to strut sitting down?
Well, you'll be able to tell him if he does.
Go down that bridge.
I think but getting back to that Leinster game, I mean, it's fascinating really because, you know, last year what we saw in the final was that Leinster were bossed physically. You know, that the just the sheer size and physical clout of that La Rochelle side wore them down and turned the tide quite dramatically in the last 20 minutes, last quarter of the game. And this Toulouse side is of similar proportion. So, you know, Meafu is apparently the you know, Galtier is trying to get him for the World Cup.
Yeah, he's the rich man's Skelton.
Yes, well, he's even a slightly bigger specimen than Skelton, I think. You know, I mean, but he's also he's a pretty impressive rugby player as well.
Yes, indeed.
And I just think, you know, that Toulouse have that, you know, they have that physical size that Leinster might find it difficult to cope with if it's close going into the sort of the final quarter. And the one thing that struck me in the game against the Sharks was the way that Ntamak, after pretty hot and cold season, pretty average season by his standards, that try that he scored where he sold, I think, about 10 dummies on his way to the line, just indicated that you've got a player who's just getting his sort of confidence tank filled up again, probably at just the wrong time for Leinster. And with Dupont as well, they've got something. But Leinster have played, you know, tremendously throughout the whole competition, and they are just in terms of you know, I suppose command of skills and the ability to find and work space. They're a team in a different league to most others.
Big game for Ross Byrne, isn't it?
Big game for Ross Byrne. Big game for, you know, the head-to-head between Jameson Park and Dupont will be fantastic.
The reason I single out Byrne is that this is, you know, it's not beyond question that Sexton's going to struggle for fitness around World Cup time. I mean, when it begins to go, it goes quite quickly, as I suppose we all found out at our levels. And you know, the big flying ointment for Ireland in all this time of their number one in the world and their Grand Slam champions and all the rest of it, the run they've had is the question hanging over them, the sort of sword of Damocles, if you like, is what happens if Sexton's cropped or if Sexton's half fit. And this guy's come in and he's going well, but these very big games, the business end games of the, you know, if he can control games of this magnitude, that's very good news for Ireland going into the World Cup. But if he goes quiet or falls flat, then the panic's back on.
Yeah, home advantage is a big one as well, isn't it? I mean, Leinster blew it on the road in that European final last year, but they, you know, neutral venue for the semi-final, 51,000 at the Aviva. It's got to be you know, it's going to be such a close game anyway that you'd think that is an advantage. He hasn't. Ollie hasn't asked us for a prediction yet. I'm going to stick with Leinster. I did last week, but I wouldn't be the slightest bit surprised to see Toulouse win.
Did Leinster get beaten in the URC?
Yeah, who beat them now?
Wasn't it the Stormers?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
And was that at the Aviva or was that at?
You're asking the question now, Nick. I can't remember where that was. That again was a case of a team matching them up front.
Look, they're you'd have to say that it will be a different a different occasion. It should be a fantastic game of rugby, and one worthy of the European Cup.
Talking of the European Cup, I think there's been some interesting. There was some interesting news in the rugby paper at the weekend, wasn't there? This idea that that it's just going to be the top 8 from the URC qualify from a couple of years hence. And the way things are going, you could easily have no Welsh team in the Champions Cup, and you could have no Italian team either. Yeah. I mean, top 8 is pretty tough actually, because it's quite a big league with the South Africans playing in it as well. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what people's thoughts are on that. I mean, I know the Welsh haven't really delivered in terms of back end appearances in the European Cup for a good while, but the notion that there's no Welsh side in the competition at all.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous, Nick.
Slightly sad to me.
Chris, ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it's a European club competition. They like to call it Champions Cup, but I mean, how many of those teams are champions? So that is just their get-out pool. This is a European competition. Yeah. You've got to have an Italian team. That we haven't got one. Benetton haven't been in it. You've got to have a Welsh team going forward. You ought to have a Georgian team. If you can have South African teams, you've got to have European teams. So it's smoke and mirror, isn't it?
It looked quite good if there's no Welsh team, no Italian team, and a load of South Africans. That's a hell of a European tournament, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
It's sort of called making a rod for your own back, isn't it? But in the end, I mean, the whole idea of the European Cup has been watered down. I mean, what have we got? 8 Premiership clubs. The 8th place Premiership club in a 10, potentially a 10-team league gets into the European Cup. I mean, it's a bloody nonsense. Yeah. They're not good enough.
Champions Cup, and you come 8th.
Yeah, they're not good enough. And it's the same. But the idea, it's a very difficult one. The idea, if it's based on merit, which is what it should be based on, the ball is very much in the court of the Welsh and the Italians and the Georgians, if they were part of it, which unfortunately they're not, but it's very much in their court to make sure that they get teams into qualification places.
The whole thing about a cup competition is it's not based on merit. Cup competitions should never be based on merit. You get an entry. Those who are involved get an entry.
Okay, then we run a pre-tournament in that case.
Yeah, but you don't not get an entry into the FA Cup because you got relegated from the Premiership last year. You get the entry into the Cup. And
well, look, as soon as you get amalgamated leagues, this is the problem that you're going to have.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what we've got. And I find the idea that that there must be a Welsh, given the format that we've got at the moment, which I don't like anyway, but the idea that you should have a bye for an Italian side or a Welsh side, that they should be represented in the European so-called Champions Cup if they're not anywhere close to being champions in whatever league they happen to be playing in. Well, tough.
But how is that worse than having the 8th place team in the Premiership getting an automatic place?
Yeah, look, I agree. Look, they're both bloody, they're both totally wrong. I mean, but the reality is that, we've got a competition now. We've got a multinational competition as a qualification competition in the URC. That's, that's the way it's gone. What's the proposition that you would, that even if the Welsh team came in, sort of in the URC, came in at the bottom of the league, that they go straight into the European Cup?
The thing is, with these numbers, the Challenge Cup means nothing, doesn't it?
I agree.
It means actually, I'm quite looking forward to the 2 semi-finals.
Yeah.
At the weekend. I mean, they're decent games, very interesting for different reasons. But there are so. It seems to me there are so few teams not managing to get into the Champions Cup now. It's the Challenge Cup's a really weird thing. I don't quite know what you do about this. Whether you try and construct some kind of tournament where everyone just plays a part, everyone. So there's no qualification as such, because there aren't that many teams being left out.
Apart from the FA Cup, if you've got 32 teams, you have a blind draw. Blind draw. Leinster could end up playing Toulouse in the first round. Tough cookie. Yeah. You go all the way down. 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, 1. Yeah. So you do it.
I don't see massive arguments. I mean, there are complications. It's quite a nuanced argument. There are complications, obviously, with you're not having your pool fixtures, so you've got fewer home games during the season, all that kind of business. But actually, it's so unwieldy at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's been turned into a like I said, a watered down version of what it was. And that's a real problem. I mean, when you look at some of the Premiership sides who are playing in it, they are not, they're just not worthy of inclusion in it. And yet the whole thing's been gerrymandered to get them in there. It just makes no sense at all to me. It's meant to be an elite competition, and it's turned into anybody's in.
It's interesting, isn't it, that without relegation from the Premiership we're talking about now, and there is no way on God's earth that Newcastle would have shipped 60 points on Friday night if that was a relegation match. No way.
Right.
Absolutely no way. So now you've got, and you will see it on BT Sport, and I think BT Sport do a really, really good job in many respects, but they will be bigging up that Bristol Gloucester game between 8th and 10th or whatever it is, the last game of the season, because Bristol need to win to secure a Champions Cup place. And if that's what you're hanging your hat on for that final round of Premiership matches, because the semi-finalists are already decided, if that's what you're hanging your hat on, the battle for 8th place, it doesn't sound very brilliant, does it?
Doesn't sound great, does it? And just one interesting stat out of it all. This is the as far as the Challenge Cup is concerned, which sometimes has been a pretty pretty entertaining tournament in the past. The Challenge Cup has, for only the second time in its, I think, 27 years, doesn't have a Premiership side in it. They're all in the Champions Cup, or at least they all were.
or they went out of existence.
Yeah.
Actually, on that, though, that Challenge Cup, that Toulon-Benetton match, as Chris was saying, that could be up there with anything from the weekend, really. Felix Mayo is going to be packed. That's the biggest game in Benetton's history, bar none. I know they won this Rainbow Cup 2 years ago against the Bulls, second 15, and everybody thought they were lucky to get in because they got the 4 points because the Ospreys match was called off because of COVID or something. But they've really earned their place in this semi-final. They've had back-to-backs against Stad. They've beaten Connacht. They beat Bayonne away, Cardiff at home. So that's a big match. And I noticed they pulled back 4 or 5 of their top players from this South African leg of their final URC games. They played in the first match, but they brought Lamaro back and Rutzer and Franco Smith and a few others. And also, I think it'll be a really, especially, there's a bit of a baton passing going on. I'm sure that Toulon will make Parisi captain for the day. He's really sort of set his stall on this competition this year. He sees it as a way to go out and win some silverware. And it'd be quite a nice occasion if he is captain for the day to see him and Lamaro taking hands before the kickoff. That would be a big day for Italian rugby, I think.
I think it's great to see the Italians at that level. It just still sticks in my craw having to call them by a blinking sponsor's name. I just want to call them Treviso.
Treviso.
That's who they are.
Yeah.
I mean, one day, Benetton might give up and they'll be sponsored by a pasta company, or you'll get someone over here sponsored by Kellogg's cornflakes, and we'll have to call them Kellogg's. I mean, remember Pertemps Bees?
Yeah. Oh, who can forget them?
What the hell was that? Were they calling themselves Pertemps Bees when they beat Wasps in the cup?
They were. Yeah, they were Pertemps Bees beat Wasps.
Yeah.
Bees beat the Wasps.
I mean, the most stupid name for a rugby club in history. It's worse than Benetton. And as you may have guessed, I find that hard enough.
At least you can say that Benetton is Treviso and Treviso is Benetton. The only employers in town other than the restaurants.
Oh, is that right? Okay, yeah.
I mean, they own Treviso, Benetton, really.
Well.
But that's it's still not a very good excuse.
Brendan, you're going for just back to Leinster Toulouse before we wrap up. Brendan, Leinster. Nick, who are you going?
I'm going for Toulouse. I think I've got to be consistent. I went for Toulouse last week.
I know. We're redoing it now, but it's
no, I'm not redoing it. I'm Toulouse.
Chris?
If Leinster are at full strength, and there is some doubt, I think they've got some second row issues as we speak at the moment. I'm not sure Ryan's fit. If they're at full strength, and I have to say that I think it's another stain on the tournament that they get a home advantage that no one else gets. I mean, geez, I do somersaults over this stuff. I mean, they have every advantage on earth anyway because of the way they're constructed and what have you, and much of it through their own efforts. But the notion that they can play all their big games in front of their home fans because there's nowhere else big enough, apparently, in the Republic of Ireland to host a big rugby match. Well, hook them up to blinking Windsor Park or some.
Thomond Park's 27,000. Yeah. Why not get them there?
I mean, well, yeah, there is that. I mean, it gives them a massive advantage. I think if they're at full strength, they'll sneak it. I think if they're a little bit light in a couple of positions, Toulouse are more than capable of winning. So, what's my prediction? I don't know. I don't have the
get off the fence.
I think it's a fascinating game.
Get off the fence.
Fascinating game. Hey, look, I sit on the same fence as Bill Beaumont, and that tells you something about the size of me backside.
Chris, I don't really know what to do with that information. I'm not sure there was a lot of information, so I'm gonna give you a Leinster prediction for narrative purposes because I'm going to lose. So. On both counts, it's myself and Nick versus Chris and Brendan. So we'll see how that plays out. Guys, enjoy those semi-finals and obviously the Red Roses at Twickenham. And at home, enjoy the Red Roses if you're going. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
And I also hope Treviso win their semi-final.
Thanks for listening to this week's edition of the Rugby Paper podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on whichever podcast platform you use and recommend the show to your friends. The Rugby Paper is available to buy every Sunday, and to make sure you don't miss it, subscribe through our print, digital and online options at therugbypaper.co.uk/subscriptions. That's therugbypaper.co.uk/subscriptions to get all our content for as little as 14p per day.